Hello, TBE Network, and welcome to the TBE podcast, where we share thought-provoking stories, strategies, and ideas, as well as engage with insightful leaders from a wide range of fields and businesses across Africa. If the topics of entrepreneurship, business, startups, property, marketing, or finance interest you, then you have tuned into the right place. Hi there, TBE Network, and welcome to this pilot episode of the TBE podcast. And it's only fitting that we've got the founder and CEO of TBE himself, David Seinker. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Cameron. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this thing. I think it's got some legs. I think there's a lot of people that want to hear from you, get your expertise, really dive into your daily routine, those sort of things. But I think if you can we get a brief background of your sort of involvement in property for the last, I think, 15, 16 years, up until the 7 years ago where you decided to start TBE?
Sure. So I started my property career at a company in the inner city. We were rejuvenating old buildings into residential spaces. And that's really where I learned all of my skills. And eventually I left there. I sold my shares in that company and I went into a business in Durban with some family and student housing. Following on from that, I landed up in Johannesburg, again doing what I really liked, which was connecting entrepreneurs and investors. So I was I actually had an office at a competitor in a business center. I won't say who they are. And whilst I was meeting with entrepreneurs and connecting them to our network of investors, I saw a gap in that the business center was fully occupied and there was a waiting list. And my passion's actually also property people, entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And I wanted to create a business that was not only relying off brokerage fees, but also creating annuity revenue. So I wanted to really build a business that had both best of both worlds. So I saw this opportunity and I came about the concept of the business exchange, which had this whole events and networking angle to it. I brought in my property passion over there, where we would rent out space to entrepreneurs and bigger businesses. And I would also be able to connect with entrepreneurs and my private equity clients. And so I approached one of our investors at the time. They really liked the concept. I fitted in with their profile and their sort of overall strategy. And that was nearly 7 years ago. And now here we are. So, that's pretty much how I got going. And
what do you think were invaluable skills that you learned at that initial property job that you had shares in?
Sure, a lot. So I oversaw the whole management arm of the business. So I had like 200 staff reporting into me, which was quite something.
Yeah.
Something quite big, that. Yeah. Because there's always issues with people. You've got to manage that, and doesn't matter how big or small you are and how many staff you're actually dealing with. There's a lot you learn through that, and a lot of relationship building in that. So I had a lot of staff reporting into me. I had to set up a lot of processes. It was very much an operational position. So that's where I learned how to bring in structure into a business and process. If you don't have structure and process, you're up against it, because you can't scale if you don't have that in your company. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'd love to come back to that, but I just want to get your thoughts on. Obviously, you've got quite an experienced history in property. Where do you see commercial property kind of going? And maybe you can start with like a local perspective and then move kind of into a more broader global perspective.
Yeah. So sure. So the South African property market and the office space in particular is under a lot of strain. You'll see that when you're driving around, like in Sandton and Rosebank, a lot of buildings are empty. Of course, because of COVID and the impact of that. But even before that, the economy in South Africa and Africa to a degree has also been under a lot of pressure, which, well, let me also add that a lot of property developers also speculated many years ago, like 8-9 years ago, and they just built these buildings. The economy didn't, play up to that, and we found that the vacancy factor, even pre-COVID days, was very high. Then COVID came along and dealt a significant blow to the office market and the property market in general. Where to from here? It's great for companies like the Business Exchange because we can engage with landlords and partner with them There's also opportunities for us to, grow on our own trajectory and bring in, or rather expand our portfolio. It's definitely going to be more of a hybrid way of working. That's how I see it. A lot of staff and a lot of corporate companies are going to allow their staff to continue to work from home, but not all the time. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people hate it. I mean, yes, perhaps I'm biased, but I personally didn't like it. And I don't even have children yet, and I'm having a child in 10 days. So, but even just having animals and my wife, and I better be careful how I say this, but it creates a lot of disturbances. So that's the one thing. The other thing with working from home is that some people actually work too much, and that creates another strange problem. You can actually
the boundaries get blurred. I mean, you'll work to 10 p.m. instead of have that commute where you can kind of switch off. And
exactly, there's no separation there, and so a lot of people don't like that. They like to have the distinction between work and home, and they like that balance. So for me, it's very much a hybrid way of working. We're seeing it overseas, we're seeing it internationally already, but even in South Africa, it's starting to happen. We have a lot of huge corporate companies inquiring with us because they don't want to renew their leases with typical sort of landlords in your conventional spaces. So a company with, say, 100 people may have downsized anyway because of COVID, unfortunately, but even if they didn't, they're now saying, well, do we need 100 seats? Maybe we need 50 seats, And
or the ability to kind of scale up and scale down flexibly.
Exactly. And that's the other keyword, flexibility, So our models that we offer flexibility, and companies can upscale and downscale, as you say. So for us, I think it's very exciting times moving ahead, and it's going to be interesting. And hopefully by the end of this year, things will settle down and we'll start seeing more and more companies take those decisions.
Right. Okay. And what are you, as a CEO? I mean, as a young entrepreneur or someone who's got his own business, I've always kind of, everyone I think looks up, and the word CEO holds such weight. So maybe you can give us a bit of insights into kind of your daily routine. What are some tools that you use to stay productive, and how some advice that you can offer guys that work for themselves, freelancers, small businesses to larger businesses, entrepreneurs, day to day? How can they be more productive? What does your day look like?
So look, I think a word that keeps coming into mind is energy. If you don't have energy as an entrepreneur, you're gonna struggle, right? Because it's the other key word there, struggle. It is a struggle. It's a struggle from the beginning, probably till the end. I've got I've got a lot of very successful people in my network that I speak to all the time, and a lot of them even with listed businesses abroad, in huge cities. And as big as they are now, the struggle is still there. I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and I was saying, I won't go into all the details, but I made a joke with him and saying, look, you're far richer than me, so don't worry, you're right. Something like that. But he turned around to me and he said, you know what, it's not all what it seems, and his stress levels, he was saying to me, was far higher now than they've ever been. So the struggle is always there, just changes. It sort of morphs into different shapes and forms, but coming back to what I said about the, energy, I think you've got to figure out ways to keep that energy going. And it's because it is going to be very hard. Sometimes you're going to be undecided. You're going to question yourself. You're going to question your business model from day one till the end, and you've got to have that energy. So I guess the question is, well, how do you have that energy? How can you keep that energy?
Right.
How can you get that energy going and keep it? So for everyone, people have different ways of doing that. For me, it's about exercise is key. All right. Smiling there because we exercise together sometimes.
I was going to say that having the benefit of knowing you for some years now, I've always marveled at your ability to rock up at 5 a.m. and look like you've been up for 5 hours. So and have the energy to just keep going, and then that energy just carries on. And it is always something that I've admired about you, and that I've tried to learn from.
Thank you, Cameron.
But it's also easier said than done. I mean, I think that's such a valid point. It is a struggle, and a struggle has a way of draining energy, and so you've got to kind of tap into something you know, that you can, I mean, what's something that
and
helps
as you say, struggle and stress, you know, I mean, you got to figure out ways to deal with that stress, because stress is always going to be there, and it's going to be at like crazy high levels sometimes, you know.
Right.
So for me, it's very, you know, I do CrossFit, I love it, I'm passionate about it, and that's how I deal with it, you know, as you know. But, so that's how I deal with it. I wake up, okay, I'm having a child, as I said, in about 10 days. So things might change, which I'm trying to navigate also in my head.
Right.
So I'm going to have to be more flexible. But yeah, CrossFit for me, so I wake up early. I wake up like 4:30, go to CrossFit, as you say, 5:30. I train, I get home. Generally, my wife gives me a lovely shake and oats, etc., you know, which is great. And then I get my day going. I never really switch off, you know. I'm working throughout the day, whether I'm in meetings or not, checking emails, keeping the wheels turning, engaging with my staff, my clients all the time. And yeah, trying to just grow, you know, growth is really key for us, but you got to manage your business at the same time, of course.
Sure.
And so that's kind of what it looks like. Look, eating healthy for me is also really important. I was quite a big child growing up, as you were too, Cab.
I'm still arguably a big child.
Yeah. So exercise and healthy eating for me, you know, but it's not like, I try to get a bit of balance with that too. You know, I'm not like having zero carbs as an example, you know, so I try to get that balance, because you got to have the energy, right? So those are two key things for me. But look, a lot of people do a lot of other things, you know, like I try to read. My mind tends to wander a little bit, but I try to read as much as I can. But for a lot of people, I think yoga, meditation are great things.
Stuff to kind of realign, center themselves. Yeah,
100%. So I think if you've got a very busy mind, those things are great. Again, I don't do that. I would love to do it more. I don't. That's my challenge. Kind of focus it more on the exercise and eating sort of side of things. Yeah.
Okay. And a bit earlier, you were kind of alluding to your sort of, well, you were telling us about your sort of journey coming into an entrepreneur. And I'd be remiss if we didn't chat like just a little bit about COVID and what these times mean for entrepreneurs. I think there's always that sort of struggle within people, that battle to work for someone, the security, which arguably isn't even there anymore, or to start their own business and take that leap. What would your advice be to someone potentially in a job now, great idea, they've got stuff lined up to kind of take this idea and bring it to market? Good time, bad time?
Sure. Yeah. Hard question to answer around the COVID thing, you know, and giving advice to people, because it is, as you're saying, it's so hard, you know, whether you're in business or in a job, it's tough. And so many people are being retrenched. So many businesses are going out of business, you know, so it's hard to give advice given what's going on right now.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that I think the fundamentals stay the same. It's just harder. You know? So like, if you want to start a business now, the fundamentals and your strategy should be the same, and I'll give some, you know, tips in that regard. But I think you just got to realize it's going to be a lot harder, you know, like starting out in a time like now. So that's the first part of my answer. The second part is, you know, three things that come to mind around the you know, around entrepreneurship and how to go about things. First thing is passion, which I think is quite an obvious thing. So I'm not going to go into too much, you know, around that, but you've got to be passionate about what you do. And I think energy ties in there too.
Sure.
To be passionate and highly energetic.
That's where you can kind of draw that energy from when it's lacking.
Yeah, 100%. And you got to also appreciate things are going to change all the time. So that's why the passion's important, because the business you start today could look very different in 2 years, and you could change, and I don't want to use the word pivot, but, you know, remodel your company, and kind of, you're going to go a long path there, you know, so you got to be passionate and highly energetic to sustain yourself there, which then brings me to my next word of perseverance. You know, you've got to be prepared to persevere, because as we said, the struggle is real. You know, it's going to be so hard. You're going to go through some major highs and lows, but the highs will keep you going.
Sure.
And that's why you got to keep persevering. But so I think perseverance is really key. Anything else I want to add on
I think
that?
it was also, I mean, we were chatting one day, and like I think in passing almost, you said to me, you got to give a business 10 years.
Yeah.
And that actually stuck with me, even though it was such a casual remark.
Sure.
And I think that's really important to people who have maybe in year 2, year 3, and it's tough out there, and they're battling things like COVID, which is making an already very difficult undertaking even more difficult.
Absolutely. And you got to remember, you're going to be learning all the time. I'm still learning things about this business, 7 years on. I'm still learning things. I like to think I know most of it now, but let's say I know 70% of it, 80% of it. So you're always going to be learning, and you're going to be iterating things and changing, and people, you're going to have great people, you're going to have weaker people, I don't want to go into that too much, and that's going to play its part. If you can build a champion team sooner than later, that's also going to really help you.
Right.
But the final thing I want to also touch on is about partnership, and getting in the right partners. A lot of businesses, when they start out, they need funding. I think some need funding. They think they need funding, and they actually don't. But for those that do need funding or start needing growth capital, I think partnership's really important. And I've seen a lot of people fall short there. They just want the money in, and they just do that deal at any cost, and they get the wrong partners, and then they absolutely hate their lives. Every day they're coming to work, it's like just a job, and it's not enjoyable. You're fighting all the time. It's not great. You're not aligned. You don't have the right culture fit. So that's key. If you're going to bring on partners, make sure you're aligned with them, with your vision, your culture, your values.
Right.
And we've got partners in a company called Race Corp, and they've been fantastic because of those reasons, because we aligned, we have the same vision, our values are the same. So that's really important. So I'd caution entrepreneurs, because as I say, a lot of entrepreneurs think that they just need to raise funding straight away.
Right.
And then they just get on any partners. And I've seen a lot of horror stories around that. So that's also really, really important.
Okay. I mean, we could obviously sit here for hours and talk about things like CrossFit and entrepreneurship, but I think for the first episode, that's some really valuable information. Dave, thanks so much for kind of kicking this thing off. Maybe in future we can talk about entrepreneurs looking for venture capitalists or funding, or we can touch on things like that. But thank you so much for everyone listening to this. We'll catch you again in our next episode, where we chat to Neil from Veza Properties. Dave, thanks, man.
Thanks, Cam. It was fun.
All right. Cheers, guys.